Hey everybody, Ott DeFoe here, and I want to go through a few aspects of Slim. This is the new Rapala OG, which stands for Ott's Garage Slim 06. It's a 6-foot diving bait, and some things about this bait. It's a flat-sided bait, it's balsa wood, circuit board lip. It's actually the very first bait that Rapala has ever produced with a circuit board lip like that. And it comes stock with VMC hybrid trebles on it. But for using this bait, man, it is an excellent cool water bait. A lot of people think of a flat-sided bait in those cool water times. I'm no different. When that water's 65 degrees or less, there's a really good chance I'm going to be throwing a flat-sided bait. A flat-sided bait just has a better flash and a little bit tighter action, especially when you combine it with the bill angle that we put into Slim. For me, fishing that bait, I'm going to fish it anywhere where those fish are staging up. I'm always thinking a pre-spawn type deal with this kind of bait. Places where I'm targeting fish anywhere from as shallow as 2 or 3 feet down to those 5 and 6 foot depths where it'll reach on a maximum distance on a long cast. But this bait works well in rock, it works well around short grass, and it'll come through some brush as well too if you just take your time and ease that bait through those places. For me, I was really successful with this bait in the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour down at the very first stage this year down on Lake Eufaula in Alabama. This was the bait that really did well for me at that event. Caught a lot of fish. Those fish were pre-spawned, staged up, using the mouth of those pockets, and that was the bait that I was cranking around some of that isolated wood. But for the setup for fishing this bait, to start with what it's tied to, that's 14-pound XPS fluorocarbon line. I really like 14-pound test. A lot of times I'm going to be fishing this bait in and around fairly heavy cover, and it'll still reach about 5.5 feet with 14-pound test. If you drop down to 12, you'll for sure get 6 out of it. If you went to 10, you could get maybe 7 or 8 feet out of this bait. So if you're wanting to get the bait deeper, you can drop down in line size. But for me, 90% of the time, it's going to be with that 14-pound XPS. The rod and reel, that's a Bass Pro cranking stick. Man, that is absolutely my most favorite rod. It's what I throw all my crankbaits on. It's what I throw my bladed jigs on. That cranking stick is like a composite rod. It's kind of a blend with graphite as well as glass, but just an excellent action, very parabolic bend, works really, really well for anything with treble hooks. Combine that with a Bass Pro Platinum Reel, a 6:8 gear ratio. That's what I fish all my crankbaits on. Slim is no different as far as that's concerned. That 6:8 is a good speed for warm water when I really want to fish the bait fast, as well as for cool water. I've got enough control that I can slow that bait down and not really fish it, you know, too quick in those situations, but always fast enough I can take up line when those fish, when I'm actually fighting them and they're running around like crazy. So that's my complete setup. Combine that with a set of reel grips on that reel. I'm always got, you know, good grip with those on there, so that's something I've got on every single rod and reel that I own. But all around, just an excellent setup for all crankbaits, especially shallower runners, but definitely for that OG Slim 6-foot diving flat-sided bait from Rapala. So with Rapala, we've got several new colors, 5 to be exact, coming out this year, and a lot of those colors I had a hand in, you know, whether it was making some tweaks or the actual ideas for them. But one of those colors was one that was definitely one that I had a lot of work in, as well as Jacob Wheeler. You may have read about the story of how it came to be a little bit, but this will be a real representation of exactly how that color came to be. So this particular one here, with some blue, a little bit more gray, some silver flake on the back of it, that was the one that Jacob Wheeler had given me several years ago to have some painted that color. And I had some painted like that, and I used them some, and I caught fish on it. And I had my buddy at home. His nickname is Biggs. His name's Jason Chambers, but he was the one who custom painted me up some DT10s and DT16s in that color. And then a few years, about a year went by, and I wanted that color, but in everything. I wanted it in my bait Slim that I'd been working on. I wanted it in a 4 and a DT6, DT16. I wanted it in everything. And so I had him paint me up a bunch more, and he actually changed the color a little bit to where it had some green, it's got some purple in it. Actually, you know, a little bit of a variation from what that original one was, and definitely a very pretty change that we made there. And this is actually the exact bait that I used down at Lake Athens, stage 3 of the Bass Pro Tour in 2020 for the win down there. This is the exact one that I caught those fish on. So definitely can't argue that it works. But during that time, I was already working with Rapala on the original, or on the Rapala version of that color, and what we were able to come up with that is very, very similar is that one. And we've since named it Big Shad, after my buddy Biggs, who's the one who painted, did the custom painting on those for me. But that is the Rapala version of Big Shad. It's got that purple, it's got a little bit of green on the back, still got the silver flake in there and that little bit of chartreuse. But it's really, to me, the little bit of yellow kind of chartreuse, the purple, the green, those are important. But man, that main tone of that side being just that kind of dull gray, it's a little bit reflective, but it's just a very subtle hue. Man, that is what makes this color so special, in my opinion. It's just a very natural color that I'll catch fish on when the water's really clear, or I'll catch them on it when it's got some color to it. Like down there at Lake Athens, probably only had 2 feet of visibility or so in that area where I was fishing, so it was far from being very clear water, but Big Shad definitely shined in that. So an excellent color for a lot of different conditions, a lot of different watercolors, but just a very natural representation of gizzard shad, of threadfin shad. This bait here will match any type of shad pattern that you need to be fishing.